could make a drinking game out of that and you'd have a jolly good time. Everything was just bad, but it was so ridiculously over dramatic. I hated this book and people love it. Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Kizzy and today I'm going to be doing my DNFs of 2022. I have this in kind of two sections. Two of these books, they're everywhere on social media. They're on Instagram, they're on YouTube. People love these two books. And I'm going to leave those to last just because I feel like they're going to be the ones like people are most disappointed in. But I fully DNF those ones. Like I've given up my copies. Someone else owns those now and I am done with them. The other ones are kind of ones that I've just picked up and kind of put down. They're not necessarily ones I'll never come back to, but they're not in my usual genre. So they were when I was trying different things, trying to get out of a reading slump and just never continued on with them. They're ones I'm not too fussed about, but they're just in this video because they are DNFs. I did not finish them in 2022. The first one is one I read because it was kind of recommended similar to a book that I read, The Great Circle, which I absolutely loved and wanted something similar to that. And so I picked up this and she's meant to be a really good author and just won I think the Women's Prize for her most recent book. But that is A Tale of Time Beginning by Ruth Ozeki. So it's told in two different timelines. We've got one girl who is from Japan and she's writing her life in her diary. She's kind of going through a lot of things and debating I think whether or not she wants to commit suicide. And then she puts this diary in a Hello Kitty box. Then it makes its way across the ocean and our other character picks it up and starts reading it. She's also going through a little bit of a moment in her life. She's living on this very remote island with her partner. She's more of a city person. She's struggling creatively to write. You know, she's just kind of like thinking a lot about her life and where she's ended up and whether or not she's happy in the situation that she's in. And then she discovers obviously this lunchbox, tries to piece together this girl Neo's life. And I didn't get very far. I think I got about 100 pages into this. And then I went on holiday and I thought, I want to start a new book on holiday. I'll read this when I get back. I never picked it up again. But it is one that I feel like if I ever go through a reading slump again and I want to read something completely out of my genre, I would want to kind of like pick this up. So I don't want to get rid of it just to have it there. So it's a DNF, but it's possibly not a permanent DNF. The next one I have, I just didn't really get along with the writing style. I don't know, it just felt a bit dry. It felt just a bit kind of meh. But it sounds really interesting as a concept. It's called The Matrix by Lauren Groff. It's about a woman who is exiled from the French court, sent over to England to become a priory out of an abbey, ends up becoming the head prioress, and then there's crusaders and she becomes like a warrior. I don't really know, I didn't get to that point in the book, but it's not very long. It's 250 pages long and a lot of time flew by in what I did read. But it does sound so interesting and I know people that have read it that loved it, so I really want to love it. I just didn't. But it just sounds such a cool concept that I don't want to get rid of it because I feel like I do want to read it. I just don't think I'll like it. The next I did kind of find interesting. I just don't know enough about history to get it, I think. But that is Civilizations by Laurent Bint, or Binet, probably, Binet. But it follows an alternate history of a lot of very important characters in history, kind of thinking about if things had gone different ways, how that would have affected history, how that would have affected the characters, what those characters were really like, etc. But I don't know enough about the history yet to know when it kind of plays with it, when it changes history, when it shifts in direction. I feel like most do, but I have such a blank gap in my knowledge when it comes to history. It's something I do need to work on. So I would like to go back to this. I was trying to read this on holiday and I had no Wi-Fi and I couldn't Google the things that were happening. So I feel like I need to read it again when I've got that ability, when I can actually research the events that are happening and the characters that are being introduced. But again, this is another really short one, so I really should give it another go. The next one is one because I like travel and I thought I should read some travel writing. This is a #1 bestseller, Around the World on 80 Trains. It's meant to be very good, but I didn't get on with it. I mean, I got about 100 pages in, and for those 100 pages, we didn't really see anything apart from just the train travel, which I get is the point of the book, how traveling by train is different from like just flying to somewhere, but I'd rather know about what it is like in the place rather than this. But I'm willing to try more travel literature and possibly I will try this again, which is why I'm not getting rid of it, but it wasn't for me, I don't think. Next we have another one which I do also want to go back to when I'm in a reading slump and I don't want to read fantasy anymore. I'm just in a fantasy mood, so I don't want to read this. But this is such a cool cover, which is mainly why I bought it. But it's A Room Called Earth by Madeline Ryan. It's an own voice author talking about a girl who is neurodivergent, going to a party, getting ready to go to a party, going to a party, discovering that she doesn't like it, leaving, and then deciding actually no, I should stick this out, and going back. And it's kind of just her observations of the world around her, how the people are interacting, and the social kind of aspect of it. And I feel like it will be one that I'll really enjoy once I've got past it. I think I only read about 30 pages of this, so I'm not even sure if it qualifies to be on this list, but it's here and I would love to read it, just not right now. When I was in my witch retelling fairy tale mood, this really appealed to me. I'm not really in that mood anymore, and I found the writing very literary, and I was not in a literary mood, and rarely am, if I'm being perfectly honest, so I don't know if I will come back to this. I might unhaul this one. But it is set near where I used to live, so I'm kind of intrigued that way. Maybe one day I'll come back to it. But it is The Manningtree Witches by A.K. Blakemore, and it's about the Manningtree Witches. So it is a historical fiction set in England in 1643 when women were persecuted for being witches. I would love to learn more about that because it's a part of history that I would be fascinated in. So I do want to read this. I just don't think I'm going to be in the mood for a while. I think, again, I got about 50 pages in and it is just very dense. It took me a long time to read those 50 pages, a lot of hours spent was doing that. I don't know, I just wasn't in the mood to do that at the time. Again, it's less than 300 pages, so I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel like I should have been able to power through that, but I didn't. This was also throughout the reading slump of the first half of the year, the black hole of the beginning of 2022. That also could have been part of it. So those are the ones that I kind of like, I'm on the fence about going back to because they're not in my usual genre, which is like why I think I didn't get on with them, but I feel like I could like them if I was in the right frame of mind. I just need to be in the right frame of mind when I go back to them. The other two though, I was in a fantasy mood. I wanted to read these books really badly when I read them. I just really disliked them a lot. Like I disliked them and I never want to read them again. The first one is The Daughter of a Moon Goddess. I hated this book and people love it. So many companies have brought out special editions of this book. I see on Instagram all the time. People rave about this book. They love it. I didn't. I was buddy reading this with my friend Debs and maybe we were hyping each other up in a bad way because everything that we read in this book, we were like, this is stupid. Why are they doing this? It was so fast paced without any kind of development. Like she went from boom, 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 like in like 10 pages and we were meant to follow this romance. There was no romance, you know, like she was in love with this person, but we spent 2 seconds with them. They'd spent 10 years together or something ridiculous like that. But that was just glanced over in a sentence, you know? It was 10 years later or something ridiculous like that. And we were meant to just believe it, but it wasn't believable. It was not believable. Like, I didn't get it at all. The writing was poor in my opinion. It's a book that I think was put in fantasy, in adult fantasy, but it had no complexity to it. It was like a young teen book in my opinion. Unless something happened along the way. There was a violent fight scene or a sex scene that I didn't know about that probably should have just been taken out and it could have been put into teen fantasy. Like it didn't belong in that genre. I really disliked this book. Everything was just bad about it. There wasn't a single thing that I liked. I gave it a go. Like I think we read like 100 pages of this book and it was just so bad. Like it was so fast. You didn't care about any of these characters, but you were meant to because so much had happened in their life, but nothing had happened because we hadn't seen any of it. Because it was all just described to us in like, this happened, this happened, this happened. Very little things were we actually shown. You know, she gained all these powers really fast, but we weren't shown her getting any of those. It was just very, I don't know, I just didn't like it. People love this book. It just wasn't for me at all. So the next one is one that this is the one that I see still and I'm like, maybe I didn't give it enough of a go. And again, me and Debs were buddy reading it and we were reading it in the staff room together and we were just taking the mick probably when we were reading it because we literally only read like the first chapter, but it's told from someone narrating a story, but he was so dramatic. I haven't even told you the book yet. Pause. The book is The Final Binding, and again, I just don't think it was worth it. Did I read enough to give a judgment? Maybe not, so I am a little bit more hesitant on this one. I'm not quite as judgmental, but it was so ridiculously over dramatic, that first chapter. There was a paragraph just for this guy like twirling his pen out of his sleeve. I get he was trying to be like, he was trying to portray what the character was like. I think the character himself was a bit over the top, but you can do that without the whole scene becoming ridiculous. You know, like you can make a character seem ridiculous without the book seeming ridiculous. There was a sentence on the first page that didn't make any sense. It was just a jumble. It didn't make sense. It was trying to be too flowery when really it didn't need to be, and it wasn't doing it well enough to even warrant it being flowery. What was the word? There was a word that was repeated a billion times. Was it breath? It was something like he held his breath, or the breath. The stillness. It was the stillness. There was so much stillness in this first chapter. Everything was still. But people were still moving in the stillness, but it was still. And then there was stillness, and then there was still. And then he sat in the stillness, and then everyone stopped, and there was stillness. There was just a lot of stillness. I don't have the book with me. I unhauled it. I got rid of it. So I can't even show you the paragraph. But I remember the stillness. Like, you could make a drinking game out of that, and you'd have a jolly good time. But it wasn't for me. But I'm thinking I should have given it more of a chapter, because I don't like to DNF books. It goes against my instinct to not finish books, which is why I have this pile of books that I'm probably never going to read, but I can't give them away or give them up, because I might one day, in the near or distant future, possibly kind of 10% likely to pick it up. Less than that, probably. So I don't like DNFing books, so I feel like I should have probably given this more of a go to be sure, because I had my doubts. But maybe I'll pick it up in the paperback and I'll see how it goes, but I'm not sold on it. And it's got such a cool cover. Like, I really liked the cover. I just didn't like the book. And it was huge. It's massive. 832 pages. That first chapter could have made it cut off at least like 100 pages. Not that's dramatic. But I'm sure if the book continued like that, it could be half the size. I shouldn't go back to it because I've got so many better books that I want to read. So I think I should let this one go. Unless someone gives me a really, really good reason to continue, and then I maybe will. That's yet to happen. So I'll be letting this one go, I think. I've got to let it go. So that's it. That's all my 2022 DNFs. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I haven't destroyed too many souls and favourite books of yours. I hope you have a good day. Please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video very, very soon.